My wife cheated on me with my best friend, then stole $250, $0 from our joint account to run away with him. And now she's suing me for the house worth $1 million, claiming she's entitled to half of everything. Help, I'm losing everything. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, staring at the pieces of his life falling apart, but here I am. The weird thing is, everything seemed fine, or at least I thought it did. I had a good job, a beautiful house, a wife who seemed perfect, at least that's what I told myself. But then one day something felt off. Little things. She'd be glued to her phone more than usual, hiding her screen when I walked into the room. She'd cancel plans last minute, and when I pressed her, she'd get bitchy, say I was paranoid or controlling. She'd roll her eyes and tell me I was imagining things. Her name's Lisa. She's pretty, confident, and she always knew how to get her way. When we first got married, everything was great, passionate, fiery, full of promise. But after a few years, I started noticing cracks. She'd go out with friends a lot more, come home late, smelling like she'd been somewhere she shouldn't. I always brushed it off. Women do that sometimes, right? No big deal. But then the small signs turned into big ones. It started with her phone. She'd keep it close, always face down, always locking it. She'd get defensive if I asked to see it. One night I was in bed scrolling through my own phone when I saw a message pop up from a number I didn't recognize. It was a text, nothing explicit, but enough to make my stomach drop. It said, "Can't wait to see you again. Tonight, going to be perfect." My heart stopped. I stared at it for a second, trying to process what I was reading. Who the hell was this guy? And why was she texting him like that? I decided to dig a little deeper. Over the next few days, I installed a spy app on her phone just to get some clarity. It wasn't easy, and I felt like a damn creep doing it, but I needed to know. What I found made my blood run cold. There were dozens of texts, flirty, suggestive, full of plans to meet up. Not just one night stands, but a full-on affair. Her talking about their secret moments, how she loved the thrill of sneaking around. There was even a series of photos of her in lingerie, sent to him with captions like "Wish you were here." I couldn't believe it. My wife, my partner, cheating right under my nose. The worst part, she was lying about everything. She told me she was busy at work, stressed, that she was just talking to a guy about a project. She told me I was imagining things, that I was paranoid, that I didn't trust her. But her phone told a different story. I felt betrayed, humiliated. I'd always tried to be a good husband, supportive, caring. And now I found out she'd been cheating on me with my best friend, Mike. The same Mike I'd confided in, the guy I'd trusted more than anyone. When I confronted her about the texts, she acted like I was crazy. She said I was overreacting, that I was jealous, that she loved me and would never do anything to hurt me. She called me insecure and told me I was ruining what we had. But I knew better. I had proof. I didn't even need to say anything. I just looked at her and she knew I knew. Her face went pale. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, thinking about everything she'd lied about, all the times I'd ignored the little signs. I felt sick. Not just because of the betrayal, but because I'd trusted her so blindly. How could she do this? How could she lie to me about something so serious? And then, the thought that hurt the most, she'd been sleeping with my best friend, Mike. My best friend. I'd shared everything with them, opened up about my hopes and fears, and this was how they repaid me. I sat alone in my office, staring at the screen of her phone, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her keep lying, keep sneaking around, and keep stealing pieces of my life. I had to confront her, but I also knew I needed to plan. This wasn't just a moment of anger, it was a turning point. I had to decide what to do next. I was angry, humiliated, and deeply hurt, but part of me was also starting to feel numb. This wasn't the life I thought I had. It was a lie, and I was going to find out how deep that lie went. The next day, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. My mind kept replaying everything I'd discovered the night before: Lisa's texts, her lies, her betrayal. I couldn't focus on anything. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly furious. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all the signs? How did I let it get this far? I thought I knew her, but she'd been hiding this secret for who knows how long. I decided I needed a plan. I couldn't just confront her without evidence or a clear idea of what I wanted. First, I looked into our joint bank account. I'd always trusted her with money, but now I saw the truth. Over the past few months, she'd been draining it, small amounts at first, then bigger withdrawals. I found a series of transfers, 250, zero in total, going to an account in her name that I'd never seen before. My stomach sank. She planned to run away, and she'd already taken a quarter of $1 million. How could she do this? And with Mike, I started digging into her phone more. I needed to know if she was planning anything else, if she had any other accounts or secret plans. I also hired a private investigator. I felt sick about it, but I couldn't ignore the possibility she was planning to disappear with everything. Within a day, the pie confirmed what I feared. She was packing her bags, planning to leave town. She'd already booked a one-way ticket to Florida. She was going to run, and I was just the fool left behind. That's when I realized I had to act fast. I couldn't let her leave with my money, my house, everything I'd worked for. I had to stop her. I decided I'd confront her face to face, but I also wanted leverage. I made copies of all the evidence, texts, bank statements, the pie's report. I wanted her to know I had everything. When she came home that evening, I was waiting. She looked annoyed, like I was bothering her. I could see she'd been crying, her makeup smudged, her eyes red. She tried to act innocent, to deny everything, but I laid everything out. On the table, her texts, the bank transfer receipts, the pie's report. Her face twisted into a sneer. "You're crazy," she snapped. "You're just jealous because I don't want some boring, predictable life with a guy who doesn't know how to have fun." I told her I knew about the affair, about the money, about her plan to run away. Her reaction was to laugh, a cold, bitter laugh. "You think you can control me? You're nothing but a boring old guy who's too scared to live. Mike and I were happy. We're leaving, and there's nothing you can do about it." She kept lying, spinning her bullshit, trying to make me doubt myself. She called me insecure, pathetic, said I was jealous of her happiness. But I wasn't buying it. I knew she was lying. I knew she'd been screwing Mike for months, probably more than I'd ever suspected. I knew she'd stolen everything and planned to leave me with nothing. I looked her in the eyes and told her she was a liar, that she'd crossed a line I never thought she would. I told her I was done being played for a fool. That's when I made my move. I told her I'd call the police if she took one more dollar or tried to leave with the house. I told her I'd file for divorce and take everything I could because I had the evidence. She got even angrier, screaming at me, calling me a controlling bastard, saying I was ruining her life. But I stood my ground. I wasn't going to let her walk away with my money, my house, and my dignity. In that moment, I realized I'd never felt so betrayed, so humiliated. My wife, my best friend, all of them had conspired against me. I felt a deep sense of loss, not just of money or a house, but of trust, of my sense of security. I knew I had to get out of this mess, but I also knew that things would never be the same again. The love I once had for Lisa was gone. All I had left was the anger and determination to fight back. This was my life, and I wasn't going to let her ruin it without a fight. Over the next few days, everything escalated. I contacted my lawyer, who told me I had a solid case for divorce, especially with all the evidence I'd gathered. The bank statements, the texts, the pie's report, they painted a clear picture of her betrayal and theft. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was overreacting, that she loved me and was just trying to find herself. That was her usual line: blame everyone else, deny everything, cry crocodile tears. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I'd seen too much. She started acting more bitchy, more aggressive. She'd call me names, accuse me of trying to control her, of being insecure. Her voice was sharp, her words cutting. She said I was a terrible husband for accusing her of cheating, that I was ruining her life. She kept insisting she deserved half the house, half the money, because she was entitled to it all. That's when I really lost it. I told her she was a liar, a thief, and a user. I told her she was a manipulative bitch who thought she could walk all over me, take everything, and leave me with nothing. Her reaction was to threaten me with a lawsuit. She claimed she was entitled to half of everything, that she'd take me to court and make sure she got her fair share, that the house, worth over $1 million, was hers by right because she was my wife. She said she'd sue me for divorce, for custody of the house, and she'd make sure I paid her back for all the years she sacrificed for us. I couldn't believe her audacity. She was full of lies, twisting everything to her advantage. Meanwhile, I was also dealing with the money. I had to freeze our joint account, but she'd already transferred most of the cash. I managed to stop her from taking more, but I knew she'd try to come back for the rest. I also found out she'd secretly opened a new account in her name, probably to hide what was left. I was furious. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this, then turn around and sue me, claiming she's entitled to half of everything I worked so hard for? I started to realize that her plan was more than just running away with Mike. It was about draining me of everything I had. She wanted to leave me broke with nothing. I felt like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, had become a total stranger, a con artist, a thief, a liar. And I was the fool who had believed she was different. I decided I'd fight back. I hired a good lawyer, one who specialized in high-stakes divorce and asset protection. I wanted to keep everything I had built, and I wanted to expose her lies. I also contacted the authorities about the theft, because what she did was fraud, plain and simple. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I also started documenting everything, her lies, her threats, her manipulations. I was determined to hold her accountable, but the emotional toll was heavy. I felt deeply betrayed, humiliated again and again. Every time I looked at her, I saw a stranger, a woman who had once been my partner, now a liar and a thief. It hurt more than I could say. I'd always thought marriage was supposed to be about trust and loyalty, but she'd shattered that. Now I was left trying to pick up the pieces, wondering how I got here, wondering if I'd ever be able to trust anyone again. And amidst all this chaos, I kept asking myself, how did it all go so wrong? How did the woman I loved turn into someone capable of stealing from me, lying to my face and trying to take everything I had? The betrayal cuts deep, but I also know I have to stand up for myself. I can't let her get away with this. I have to fight to protect what's mine, even if it means losing her forever. Because at the end of the day, I realized I was fighting for my dignity, and that's something I refused to give up. The court dates started coming faster than I expected. My lawyer warned me that Lisa's team was already preparing to fight dirty, claiming she was entitled to half the house and everything else because she was my wife and had contributed to the marriage. That was her go-to line. She'd lie, spin stories, and try to manipulate the judge into giving her more than she deserved. But I had the evidence and I was ready to fight dirty back. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude grew even more bitchy and entitled. She'd show up at the house, demanding access, trying to intimidate me into giving her what she wanted. She'd scream about her rights, how she was entitled to half of everything because she'd sacrificed so much. She'd say she was the victim, that I was trying to control her, that she deserved a fair share. I couldn't believe how her personality shifted. She was cold, calculating, and manipulative. It was like she'd become a different person, and I was just trying to hold onto the guy she used to be. One day she showed up with a lawyer trying to threaten me into surrendering the house. She claimed I was holding her hostage, refusing to let her leave or take her things. She even accused me of emotional abuse, which was laughable. I knew this was just her way to scare me into submission. I stayed calm, but inside I was seething. I knew her game. She was trying to push me into giving her everything just to make her go away. Then something unexpected happened. I found out she'd been secretly seeing Mike again, another betrayal I hadn't caught until now. I got a copy of their text exchange where she was planning her escape, talking about how she was done with the marriage and ready for a new life in Florida with Mike. The texts were full of promises. They'd be happy forever, she said, once she got her hands on everything. That was the last straw. I realized she'd been lying to me from the start, just using me and planning her escape with my best friend. At that moment, I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't let her get away with this. I contacted the authorities again, this time with more evidence of her planning to steal and run. I also told my lawyer to push for a temporary restraining order, something to keep her from selling the house or transferring any more money. I was determined to put a stop to her schemes, no matter what it took. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt like I was fighting not just for my money or my house, but for my very sanity. Every day, I'd wake up feeling betrayed, angry, and exhausted. I'd look at her trying to see the woman I married, but all I saw was a stranger, someone who lied, cheated, and stole from me. I kept wondering how I didn't see it all coming, how I was so blind to her true nature. It's a crushing feeling, knowing someone you loved so much turned out to be someone you never really knew. But I also learned something during this chaos. I am stronger than I thought. I refused to be a victim. I refused to let her take everything I worked for. I started to realize that this wasn't just about money or a house. It was about respect, boundaries, and my dignity. I vowed to fight for myself, to stand tall even when everything felt like it was collapsing around me. I knew I couldn't undo what she did, but I could make sure she paid the price for her lies and betrayal. And I was determined to do just that, no matter how long it took. The court hearings dragged on for what felt like forever. Each session was a battle, her lawyer throwing everything she had, claiming she was deserving of half the assets because she was entitled, and me trying to prove that she'd deliberately stolen money, lied, and plotted her escape. I had piles of evidence, bank statements showing the withdrawals, texts from her planning the getaway, the Pies report, confirming her intentions to leave with Mike, and even her own words trying to justify her actions. It was a nightmare, but I knew I had to keep fighting. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude kept getting worse. She'd show up at the house, demanding access, trying to intimidate me into giving her what she wanted. She'd scream about her rights, how she was entitled to half of everything because she'd sacrificed so much. She'd say she was the victim, that I was trying to control her, that she deserved a fair share. I couldn't believe how her personality shifted. She was cold, calculating, and manipulative. It was like she'd become a different person, and I was just trying to hold on to the guy she used to be. One day, she showed up with a lawyer trying to threaten me into surrendering the house. She claimed I was holding her hostage, refusing to let her leave or take her things. She even accused me of emotional abuse, which was laughable. I knew this was just her way to scare me into submission. I stayed calm, but inside I was seething. I knew her game. She was trying to push me into giving her everything just to make her go away. Then something unexpected happened. I found out she'd been secretly seeing Mike again, another betrayal I hadn't caught until now. I got a copy of their text exchange where she was planning her escape, talking about how she was done with the marriage and ready for a new life in Florida with Mike. The texts were full of promises. They'd be happy forever, she said, once she got her hands on everything. That was the last straw. I realized she'd been lying to me from the start, just using me and planning her escape with my best friend. At that moment, I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't let her get away with this. I contacted the authorities again, this time with more evidence of her planning to steal and run. I also told my lawyer to push for a temporary restraining order, something to keep her from selling the house or transferring any more money. I was determined to put a stop to her schemes, no matter what it took. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt like I was fighting not just for my money or my house, but for my very sanity. Every day, I'd wake up feeling betrayed, angry, and exhausted. I'd look at her trying to see the woman I married, but all I saw was a stranger, someone who lied, cheated, and stole from me. I kept wondering how I didn't see it all coming, how I was so blind to her true nature. It's a crushing feeling, knowing someone you loved so much turned out to be someone you never really knew. But I also learned something during this chaos. I am stronger than I thought. I refused to be a victim. I refused to let her take everything I worked for. I started to realize that this wasn't just about money or a house. It was about respect, boundaries, and my dignity. I vowed to fight for myself, to stand tall even when everything felt like it was collapsing around me. I knew I couldn't undo what she did, but I could make sure she paid the price for her lies and betrayal. And I was determined to do just that, no matter how long it took. The final court date finally came, and I felt like I was walking into a battlefield. All the evidence I'd accumulated was laid out on the table: bank statements, texts, the Pies report, everything pointing to her deliberate betrayal and theft. Lisa sat there looking smug at first, trying to act like everything was just a misunderstanding. But as the judge listened, her facade cracked. The truth was undeniable. She lied about her plans, stolen my money, and betrayed our marriage in the worst ways. In the end, the court awarded me everything I was fighting for: full custody of the house, the remaining money in our accounts, and a restraining order to keep her away. The judge called her actions fraudulent and malicious, and ordered her to pay back a significant portion of the stolen money. Watching her reaction was almost satisfying, her face twisted in anger, realizing she'd lost her power. After the ruling, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I was glad I'd fought, glad I'd protected what was mine, but part of me was devastated. I'd lost my wife, my best friend, and the trust I'd once had in people. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone who lied, cheated, and schemed her way into taking everything I had. Still, I knew I had to move forward. I filed for divorce, and the process was finalized a few months later. Now I'm rebuilding my life. I've moved to a new place, cut all ties with Lisa and Mike, and started therapy to deal with the emotional scars. I've learned a lot from this nightmare about trust, betrayal, and the importance of protecting yourself. I realized that sometimes people you love turn out to be the biggest liars, and you have to be willing to fight for your own peace. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs earlier, but I also know I did everything I could. I was honest, loyal, and willing to work through problems. Lisa's choices, her lies, and her greed destroyed what we had, but I refused to let her steal my happiness. I've come to accept that some betrayals cut so deep that you can't fix them. The best you can do is learn, grow, and never let yourself be blind again. To anyone out there dealing with something similar, trust your instincts. Keep evidence, stand your ground, and never let anyone take more than they're entitled to. Because in the end, your integrity and your peace of mind are worth more than any house or money. And no matter how dark things get, there's always a way to get through it, if you're willing to fight for yourself.